Why don't you enjoy being around people the way you used to? If that question struck a chord, you're not alone. Many people in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s find themselves stepping away from social circles they once loved. It's not that they've stopped caring. It's not that they've become bitter or withdrawn. Instead, something deep inside them has changed. And more often than not, that change is rooted in wisdom, not weakness. In this discussion, we'll explore 6 important reasons why you may find yourself avoiding people, even if you were once the life of the party. These aren't just surface-level explanations. Each one touches on something real, something that many older adults experience but rarely talk about. Some of these reasons may surprise you, while others might feel all too familiar. By the end, you may understand yourself better and even feel at peace with your need for space. Stepping back from certain people isn't something to feel guilty about. In fact, it might be one of the wisest and healthiest choices you've made for yourself. Let's begin. 1. The weight of past betrayals. As we go through life, we don't just collect memories, we collect wounds. Some are small and fade with time, but others leave deeper scars. Betrayals, rejections, and disappointments accumulate, making us more cautious about who we let in. As we get older, those past experiences shape how we approach relationships. We stop giving away our trust so easily, not out of bitterness, but out of self-protection. Take Eleanor, for example. She's 81 now, but she used to love hosting dinner parties, filling her house with laughter and music. Over the years, though, things changed. Friends drifted away. One betrayed her trust. Another disappeared after her husband passed, leaving her to grieve alone. It wasn't one big heartbreak, just a series of small disappointments that piled up. Now, she prefers solitude over forced socializing, not because she dislikes people, but because she values peace more than pretense. A kind of protective barrier forms with age, built from experience. It doesn't always feel good, but it often feels necessary. When you've seen how easily people can change or leave, you learn to guard your heart. It's not about shutting people out, it's about being selective. Many older adults have loved deeply, given generously, and been let down without warning. That cycle teaches you to pause, to think before you trust, to step back when something doesn't feel right. Psychologists call this irrelational fatigue, when the emotional cost of connection outweighs the joy. It's common among those who have endured emotional hardships. There's no shame in it. It simply means you've lived, seen both the good and bad in people, and chosen to be more careful. At this stage of life, your heart is sacred, and not everyone deserves access to it anymore. 2. The desire for peace over small talk. When you were younger, you may have tolerated meaningless conversations, chatter about nothing, gossip, or just filling silence for the sake of it. But as you age, your tolerance for shallow interactions begins to fade. It's not that you dislike socializing. It's that you now recognize the true value of peace. Silence no longer feels lonely, it feels nourishing. And once you've found that inner quiet, it becomes difficult to give it up for empty words. Take Harold, a 76-year-old former salesman. He was once outgoing, charming, and always ready to strike up a conversation. But these days, he avoids large gatherings and family events unless he genuinely wants to be there. When asked why, he simply says, "I'm tired of talking just to talk." His preference isn't for isolation, it's for meaning. He seeks genuine conversations, honesty, and moments of quiet that don't require performance. As we age, our emotional energy becomes precious. The need to impress or prove ourselves fades. Instead, we crave authenticity. If that can't be found, many would rather stay home with a book and a cup of tea than sit through empty conversations that leave them feeling lonelier than before. This isn't about arrogance. It's about knowing what truly fulfills you. There's dignity in choosing your surroundings and the people you spend time with. You've earned the right to protect your energy, to prioritize your peace, and to decline invitations without guilt. That's not avoidance. It's maturity. It's maturity. And the more you embrace this mindset, the more you realize that life doesn't need a crowd to be rich. Sometimes one meaningful conversation, or even a quiet evening alone, brings more joy than hours of forced socializing. So if you've been stepping back from the noise, avoiding pointless small talk, and skipping gatherings that drain you, know this: you're not becoming distant, you're becoming clear. Clear about what fills you, clear about what exhausts you. And that clarity is one of the greatest gifts of aging. 3. The feeling that people no longer understand you. There comes a point in life when you look around and realize the world has changed, and so have you. The slang is different, the values are different, and everything moves at a faster pace. Conversations, expectations, and even relationships feel almost dizzying. In the midst of all this, you might start to feel invisible, not because you've done anything wrong, but because people no longer take the time to understand where you're coming from. Take Marie, a 79-year-old retired teacher. She used to love sharing stories with her younger relatives, how she raised 5 children, managed a home, worked full-time, and still found time to volunteer. But these days, no one really asks about her past. When she talks, they nod politely, glance at their phones, and quickly change the subject. It's not malicious, it's just a disconnect. And over time, that gap begins to feel like a canyon. This is one of the quietest reasons older adults start pulling away. It's not that they don't care, it's that constantly being in environments where they aren't truly heard becomes exhausting. And so, little by little, they choose their own company. Not because it's better, but because it's safer. They know how much they've lived, how much wisdom they carry, but when others stop seeing it, they stop offering it. This kind of loneliness isn't about being physically alone. It's about being misunderstood. You could be surrounded by people and still feel unseen. You share a thought, and they brush it aside. You express a concern, and they call you dramatic. After enough of these moments, silence starts to feel like the better option. Psychologists call this emotional invalidation, when your feelings are dismissed or minimized. It happens not through outright rejection, but through small moments that add up over time. Ooh. But here's the truth. Your voice still matters. Your experiences still hold value. Just because others fail to listen doesn't mean you've lost your worth. It simply means you've outgrown certain conversations, and that's okay. Sometimes the solution isn't trying to fit into a world that no longer sees you. It's finding places where you don't have to explain yourself, where your presence alone is enough, where someone actually listens, not just waits for their turn to speak. And when those people are hard to find, it's natural to pull back, protect your energy, and find comfort in your own space. Because in that space, you are fully seen by yourself, and that is never something to be ashamed of. 4. The fear of being a burden. This isn't about pride. It's about love. It's about dignity. It's about not wanting your presence to feel like pressure. You start turning down invitations, not because you don't want to go, but because you don't want someone to feel obligated to pick you up. You hesitate to share your worries, not because you don't trust them, but because you don't want to weigh them down. And so, your world quietly begins to shrink. Take Frank, an 84-year-old widower who used to spend weekends with his daughter's family. As his mobility declined, he found himself declining their invitations more often. When asked why, he simply said, "I don't want them rearranging their lives around me. They've got kids' jobs, I'll just slow them down." And while his family never made him feel unwelcome, the fear of becoming a problem overpowered his desire for connection. That's the paradox so many older adults face. The more you need others, the less you want to need them. The more you value relationships, the more you hesitate to reach out because you've spent a lifetime being strong, being the caregiver, being the one others leaned on. And now, asking for help feels unfamiliar, maybe even shameful. This fear is rooted in something deeply human, the desire to be loved, not out of duty, but out of delight. And when you sense that your presence might be creating inconvenience, you begin to retreat. You'd rather be alone than feel like an obligation. But here's the truth. People who love you want to show up for you. For you. Say it right. They may not always do it perfectly, but your worth isn't measured by your independence, it's measured by your presence. And if the people around you truly care, your needs will never be a burden. They'll be a privilege. Still, the fear lingers, and it shapes behavior. You stay quiet when you want to speak. You stay put when you want to visit. You stay behind when you want to join. And gradually, avoiding people becomes easier than risking the discomfort of needing them. Now, let's move forward. 5. The quiet ending of old connections. Some relationships don't end with fights or farewells. They simply fade. People grow in different directions. Priorities shift. Life pulls you apart in slow, almost unnoticeable ways. You don't mean to drift, you just do. And one day you wake up and realize that the people who once filled your calendar are no longer part of your day-to-day life. It's not always sad. Sometimes it's peaceful. But other times it leaves an ache, like you've outgrown something you once loved. You think back on the lunches, the phone calls, the shared laughter, and you wonder where it all went. Did they change? Did you? Maybe both. Consider Ruth, a 73-year-old woman who used to take weekly walks with her best friend from high school. Over time, those walks became monthly, then yearly, and then not at all. There was no fight, no falling out, just a quiet realization that they no longer had much to say. Their lives had diverged, different interests, different rhythms. Ruth said, "We still care about each other, but I think we've said all we needed to say. This experience is more common than people realize." Relationships built on shared seasons, raising kids, working together, living nearby, often don't survive when those seasons end. And as you move into later stages of life, you may find yourself surrounded by people who no longer fit who you are becoming. That's not failure, it's growth. When you start prioritizing your time and energy, you naturally become more selective about who you spend it with. Not because you're better than them, but because you're clear about what you need. And sometimes you simply need space to think, to reflect, to be. Old friends who once energized you might now feel draining. Conversations that once flowed might now feel forced. And rather than forcing it, you choose distance, not out of malice, but out of self-respect. People often say that aging means losing people. But what they don't always say is that sometimes you let go by choice because you've learned that closeness without connection can feel lonelier than being alone. So when you pull away from certain people, it's not always about avoiding others. It's about honoring the changes within yourself. You've evolved, and that's something to embrace, not apologize for. 6. The joy of your own company. At some point in life, you stop seeking crowds and start savoring solitude. Not out of bitterness, not out of loneliness, but because you've discovered something too many people never learn. Your own company is enough. There's a certain kind of peace that settles over you when you realize you don't have to explain yourself, entertain anyone, or pretend to be more or less than who you really are. For years, you may have been surrounded by others through work, family, obligations. And in those years, you might have rarely had a moment to sit in stillness, to hear your thoughts without interruption. And once you finally taste that freedom, it becomes sacred. Not something to escape from, but something to protect. Take Gerald, an 82-year-old man who once lived for the social buzz. His house was the gathering spot, his voice the loudest in the room. But in recent years, he finds more joy watching birds from his porch than hosting parties. When asked if he gets lonely, he smiles and says, "I've got enough stories in my head to keep me company for days." What he's discovered isn't loneliness, it's contentment. This shift often confuses those around you. They might worry. They might think you're pulling away out of sadness. But in truth, you're just tuning into something deeper. A rhythm that's quieter but richer. A life that's less crowded but more full. You no longer feel the need to fill every silence or explain every choice or be available to everyone all the time. And that's not avoidance, it's wisdom. It's the kind of inner clarity that comes only after years of noise, of giving, of stretching yourself for the sake of others. Solitude, when chosen, becomes sanctuary. It's where healing happens, where reflection deepens, where your truest self has space to breathe. And the older you get, the more you realize that some of your best days don't involve anyone else at all. You walk at your own pace, think your own thoughts, do what you please. And for the first time in a long time, you feel free. Not because the world has changed, but because you finally claimed your space in it. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you do so and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue creating content to inform and inspire you. Final thoughts: what spoke to you the most today? Which of these 6 reasons felt familiar, like it was written with your life in mind? Whatever it was, I hope it reminded you of one important truth. You're not broken, you're becoming. Avoiding people doesn't mean you're bitter or antisocial. It might mean you're wiser. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share what resonated with you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps us going. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.